So here we go back again. Standard number 22. We're going to be talking about modern politics. In standard 22, we look at international domestic policies. We look at technology. We look at the administrations of Nixon, Ford, and Carter. So these are the key concepts that you need to make sure that you know in this standard. And we'll move on. So what's going on here? You see President Nixon in China and standing on the Great Wall of China. This is something that's going to be kind of controversial, but at the same time going to be something that's seen as a good thing for America. We know that China is still communist, so it's going to be kind of strange to America. However, a lot of people in America is going to see this as a good thing because it's opening up trade with a massive market of people. And this market of people could be used to sell stuff to use as labor. And the United States is going to do just that. So Nixon goes to China. He's going to open up scientific, cultural trade agreements with China. And he also hoped that the U.S. relations with China would help ease relations with the Soviets. And then Nixon goes and tries to pull people out of the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War had become a complete mess under the Democrats and LBJ. One of the reasons why Nixon was able to become president, LBJ did not even run for president. And Nixon is trying to get the people out of Vietnam. So Nixon is going to try to end the Vietnam War and is going to try to and Congress is going to try to reverse the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, which gave the president complete power over the situation in Vietnam and made Congress powerless in this situation. They're going to try to reverse that by passing the War Powers Act. The War Powers Act is going to change the way the U.S. dealt with declaring war on people, deploying soldiers and stuff like that. And this War Powers Act is going to make it where the president has to ask Congress to go to war, where the president has to put up a certain time frame on when the U.S. can go to war and how long do they stay over there. So the War Powers Act is just something to shift the powers to try to fix the wrong that was done in the Vietnam War. It's important to know that the War Powers Act is going to give Congress power over sending troops into situations more than the executive branch, being the president. So speaking of presidents, the next president is going to be Jimmy Carter. After Nixon, with all his scandals and everything, the people wanted someone who was pretty clean. So they elected Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter, the only president from Georgia. He's actually from Plains, Georgia, small place in South Georgia. And Jimmy Carter is trying to go around the world and create peace. And Jimmy Carter is trying to create peace here between Egypt and Israel. Egypt representing the Islamic nations and Israel representing Israel with the Jews. And this peace is the first peace agreement between these nations. We see what both agreed to, and this is going to bring peace to the Middle East. And this peace later on is going to go away. As we see, there's going to be things down here at the bottom, the Iranian hostage crisis and the Lebanon war, which is going to disturb that peace. So this peace agreement made between Egypt and Israel, orchestrated by Jimmy Carter, is going to be called the Camp David Accords. This is the first peace agreement between Middle Eastern nations. Speaking of Middle Eastern nations, we're going to talk about Iran. In Iran, on the left, there's a Shah, and this Shah had been strongly supported by the U.S., someone who was friendly to the U.S., this Shah, but the Shah was not liked by the people in Iran. They wanted a Muslim leader, and because of that, they overthrow this Shah, and they put the guy on the right end, which is the Ayatollah, a Muslim leader. Jimmy Carter, being that the Shah on the left was nice to the U.S., he's going to allow him to come into the United States to escape Iran and the revolution. He says that he's coming into the United States for medical treatment. This is not going to go over well with the Iranians. They're going to end up raiding an embassy, a U.S. embassy, and taking some Americans hostage. and they're going to hold these Americans hostage as something that's against what Jimmy Carter did by letting the Shah into America. And they're going to hold these hostages for 444 days until Jimmy Carter is no longer the president, and Reagan is sworn in as president. And as you see on the right, Reagan is going to do some things to help get these hostages released. He's going to end up paying off these terrorists, paying off these Iranians in order to get the hostage released. So the Iranian hostage crisis, as we talked about, there's an Iranian revolution. The Shah gets overthrown. He comes to America for medical treatment. And this hostage crisis is going to last for 444 days. This situation is going to hurt America's view in Muslim nations. A lot of the Muslim world is going to begin to turn against America because of this hostage crisis. So these are review questions. Make sure you go back and answer those. And we're moving on. So what's going on here? It's like a kid playing at the beach but getting sprayed by DDT. So what is DDT? DDT is this pest control poison to try to kill pesticides. So this is not a good situation. The U.S. Is putting a lot of these pesticides out in society and not realizing the harmful effects it can have on people. Rachel Carson is going to write a book to expose all of this. A book named Silent Spring. It leads to the EPA and Earth Day. So Nixon is going to be the one credited with establishing the EPA. Rachel Carson's book, Silent Springs, is going to talk about all those pesticides and make people aware of the dangers of pesticides on society. So moving on, the gender pay gap. Women are going to begin to bring up these issues in America, the difference between the treatment of males and females. And this women's rights movement in the 60s is going to have a major emphasis on income. All right, the women want ERA passed, the Equal Rights Amendment passed, so they can get equality in employment, political equality, and social equality. One of the major groups pushing this was NOW, the National Organization for Women, founded in 1966, to promote equal rights. They're still together and promote equal rights even today. So moving on, this building on the left is the Watergate apartment in Washington, D.C. Inside of that is what's on the right, which is the Democratic office at the building called Watergate. And the Republicans under Nixon is going to break into this building and use what's on the left, wires and tapes, to record what was going on in this Democratic office. They're going to get caught, and all fingers are going to be pointing back to Nixon. And as you see on the right, many people think Nixon is listening in on these conversations. That's going to lead to Nixon facing impeachment. And as Nixon faces impeachment, he's going to give up and just say, yeah, I resign. So Nixon's going to resign, and Ford on the right becomes president. And now many people think, oh, the politics is crazy. The president is doing crooked stuff. He's a criminal. And many people are going to start to not trust the government at all. So this Watergate scandal, the burglary of the Watergate apartment by Nixon and his administration, is going to make a lot of people not trust the government. As a result, a lot of people are going to stop voting. They're also going to pass new laws on campaign financing. So Ford pardoning Nixon also doesn't help the situation. Many people thinking that, hey, Nixon resigned, we're getting rid of the dirty guy, but Ford pardoning Nixon makes Ford look like he is part of the problem. So that didn't go well with people also, and people begin to distrust the government even more. So these are review questions. Make sure you're able to answer those. And that's the end of Standard 22. We'll see you back at Standard 23. The last video we'll do is Standard 23. We'll see you back where we'll talk about the Obamas. You guys have a great day. Continue to study and get up for that in the course test.